Who's ready for the 1990s? Are you ready for my top 10 favorite 1990s horror movies? Excluding the big dogs, as you all are aware. As I talked about in the last video, the 1980s was very, very difficult because I could not include Elm Street or Friday or Child's Play or, a Halloween movie, other than Season of the Witch. Sorry. But, that decade, the 1980s, is so fucking stacked. It was just so very, very hard. And I kind of had the thought going into the 90s it was going to be pretty difficult as well. I mean, I got like 5 concrete, absolute yeses to, these top 10s. But I really tried to do some digging on what I really, really enjoy and what I've appreciated over the years, not just as an adult, but like my whole life and everything of what just that decade revolved around other than 1996 through 1999. So other than the post-Scream boom. Obviously I have my favorites from that era in this video, as you guys are surely well aware of, but how can you not have Scream as not in this list? This was difficult, but not as difficult as the 80s. So I have, just like last time, just like the time before, I got my top 10 favorites in no particular order. Just my top 10 favorite horror movies of the 1990s as a whole. And I'm going to start it off with Stephen King's miniseries, the 1990 It miniseries. Now, it's been almost 10 years since It Chapter 1. And I remember going into that, all right, this is going to be insane. What the hell? But it made me go back and revisit the miniseries through an adult lens, through a much more mature lens than when I was fucking 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. I could really appreciate that first half of that film more than I did even as a young kid. I mean, Seth Green had a great performance in there, and I really, really appreciated his role. And then, and with the adults, Annette O'Toole was fantastic, and obviously the late, great Olivia Hussey. I get that it's a really outdated, corny kind of substance with the TV budget and everything else, but it's always going to hold a very special spot in my heart, even with how bad the spider looked at the end. It was 1990. It was television. What are you going to do? Can't win them all. I still love it, and that's why it makes it into my top 10 for the 90s. But at number 9, I'm going with Night of the Living Dead. Tom Savini's remake of George Romero's classic. You got Tony Todd in there, rest in peace. That fucking movie, that is fantastic. That is an example of one of the remakes that I argue could be, depending on the day, could be better than the original. I really, really enjoy that 1990 Night of the Living Dead remake. It's fucking awesome. If you have never seen that, I highly recommend you check that out. Watch the original first. Definitely watch the original first, but definitely go take a look at that 1990 remake. You won't be sorry. It's awesome. Number 8. All right, here we go. Let's just burn through these now. Number 8, I know what you did last summer, obviously, for obvious reasons. I'm not going to blabber on about why I love that movie so much and why it means as much as it does to me and why the movie from last year crushed me. I'm not going to go into crazy detail, but I Know What You Did Last Summer is just, I love it with every bit of my heart. And then I'm going with, at number 7, I'm going to go with Urban Legend. It doesn't hold a candle to Scream, doesn't hold a candle to I Know, but it's like that. It's like the third tier, you know what I mean? It's, the bronze medal of those 90s slashers. I really do enjoy the performances in there, seeing that young Michael Rosenbaum. And I really wish I wonder what that movie could have been like if Danielle Harris was the lead. If she played that lead role, what that could have been like. That would have been fantastic. I mean, Rebecca Gayheart gave a great performance in that movie, and it just, it is awesome. The opening with Brad Dourif. It's a great movie. I love it. If I kind of would compare it to the way people look at, I don't know, maybe like a Halloween 4 to the 80s is kind of like what Urban is to the 90s, maybe. I don't know. I do have a special spot, and it makes my top 10. I love it. It's right behind us here. And then also right behind us here, we have The Faculty. I mean, absolute star-studded cast. Fantastic, epic on all proportions. Absolutely love The Faculty. It's great. My wife loves watching it. She watches it with me at least once a year. And I've always wondered, and I've always been nervous, are they ever going to touch that? Are they ever going to try to do something with that? I've heard rumors and rumblings that either The Faculty or Idle Hands might get remade. Idle Hands is not on this list, but I do think that's the safer of the two. If you're to remake one of those two, I think Idle Hands could be done justice. So we'll see. And then next, for number 5, I gotta go with it. I got to go with my all-time favorite witch movie, The Craft, 1996. Nev is a witch. I mean, those four. I just, oh my god, the performances in that movie. I mean, Fairuza Balk's performance. She's such a freaking psycho maniac. I mean, that crazy dark side to her, and the way she turns at the end. I love it, and just that crazy. It's like, was The Craft, I mean, you don't know, was that movie really an inspiration for what we got a few years later with Charmed? I don't know for sure, but I'll always love that movie. Not just because of Nev, but I love the story. It's fun. It's just a great. And that was before Scream. I think that came out in May of '96, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not exactly positive, but I remember watching that as a young kid and thinking it was really, really cool. It's a blast. It's obviously on my list. It's all over this room. I got the girls everywhere. I love it. Number 4 is going to Candyman. I think Candyman is that one last solid. It was 92. Slasher genre, dead or dying. Just that slow, painful death before Scream. But the character of Candyman, it makes me wonder if Candyman came out in 97, or let's say 80, if Candyman came out in 87 and or 97, would that character be more iconic than it is today? I think it's Tony Todd, not necessarily the character of Candyman, that's iconic, because the 2 sequels, not so great in my opinion. They're pretty lackluster. The reboot remake from like 5 years ago is pretty solid, pretty cool, but that original Candyman is a dark, creepy tale. Really, really enjoy it. It's fantastic. And it just makes me wonder, 5 years earlier, 5 years later, it could have been something so much different. I really think if it came out at a more popular time in horror, things would have been a hell of a lot different. At number 3, this might be controversial, because I don't have Silence of the Lambs on here. I'm right now, I'm going to keep that as more of that psychological, dramatic thriller kind of thing. I'm not putting that on this list because so many people argue that is or isn't a horror movie, and the same thing can be said about this, and that is The Good Son. 1993, in my opinion, arguably Macaulay Culkin's absolute peak best performance. Not Kevin McAllister, but Henry from The Good Son. Oh my goodness. It's like Batman and Superman. Macaulay Culkin and Elijah Wood together as child actors. That's literally Batman and Superman. You know what I mean? It's really, really sucks that, especially for Macaulay Culkin, that he didn't turn out to be that next huge movie star as an adult, and Elijah Wood kind of was, and then tampered off, and is just really kind of stayed kind of low key in the sunset for the last 20 years, but it is what it is. That movie, seeing the character of Henry, how diabolically fucked up it is, it's great. And it's got so many horrific elements. I had to put that on this because it's just something it's a fantastic movie in general. So whether or not you would consider The Good Son a horror movie, I'll leave that up to you, but I put that on my list of how I feel. And the last two, I'm going to go with number 2. Again, this isn't necessarily a horror movie, horror comedy, horror adjacent, what it led to kind of thing, but I'm putting Buffy the Vampire Slayer from 1992 on my list. Chrissy Swatson, the original Buffy, not SMG, but Luke Perry at the absolute peak of his powers as Pike. You got David Arquette in there. You got a young Hilary Swank in there. That's that star-studded cast. Donald Sutherland. It's fantastic. And to think, if it wasn't for that movie, would we have gotten, arguably, in my opinion, one of the greatest television shows of all time? I mean, yeah, to the average person in the world, Buffy the Vampire Slayer might not be a top television show of all time, but it is one of my top 3 or 4 TV shows ever. I absolutely love it. I loved it as a kid, loved it as an adult. I love watching it in the background. It's fantastic. And I really, really appreciate that movie. It's so much fun. I try to watch that once a year, maybe every other year, when I'm in the mood for it. My wife finds it pretty lame and cheesy, but it is what it is. And then number 1, I've got to go with Legion, The Exorcist 3. Brad Dourif's performance in that movie. I mean, it's epic. Just imagine if that was the sequel to The Exorcist, and we didn't have The Heretic from 1977. I mean, it might throw some people off. I understand that, but the interest level never wanes in that movie. I'm always on the edge of my seat watching that. It's fantastic. It really, really is. It's awesome. I just love it. So if you've never seen The Exorcist 3, if you've never given that a fair chance, I highly recommend trying it. You will not be disappointed once again. But thank you guys very, very much. If you got any ideas, let me know down in the comments below, and please like and subscribe if you haven't already. I'm having fun doing this list. It's so hard. This is, for being the kind of horror fan I am, this is a hard, challenging list. Not including these big, huge franchises, these monstrous franchises that, in a lot of ways, molded horror in the modern era. It's incredible. How can you not have a Scream movie in the 90s? It was difficult. It really, really was. I wasn't going to have any Halloween movies. I wasn't going to have any Friday movies. Probably Wes Craven's New Nightmare would have made the list, but it didn't because no Elm Street. And, Child's Play 2 didn't make it onto this list because no Child's Play. This is definitely pretty difficult. It's been hard, but it makes it more challenging, and it forces me to think outside the box. So, until next time, we'll see what the 2000s brings. We're going to be going from the year 2000 to 2009. We'll see what we can do. You never know. So, until next time, you guys take it easy. We will see you soon. Peace out.